one of the ways I show love, or I am trying to uncondition myself for showing love, is to be easy and to be like, I don't
Mm.
need anything. I don't need much, low maintenance. I will be there to help other people, but I don't allow people to help me. I think that has lent itself in my past to very superficial relationships. And I'm also really robbing people of the opportunity to like get close to me and to show me love.
Welcome to Sib as a Human, where we explore the beautiful, messy, and complex experience of being a sibling to someone with a disability or significant emotional, physical, or behavioral needs, what we call being a Sib. I'm Sheena Brevig, and today in my conversation with Carly Larkin, we talk about what happens when helping becomes a pattern you can't turn off, how our bodies carry what we never felt we could say out loud, and what it looks like to start integrating your Sib identity as an adult. Carly is a Sib in her early 30s whose younger sister Hannah was born with a complex combination of physical, developmental, and intellectual disabilities. Carly has been navigating the U.S. healthcare system since she was 2 years old, as her sister has undergone more than 45 surgeries, 30 of them on her brain. Carly's channeled that lived experience into her career as a public relations and marketing professional in the medical research industry, where she helps translate complex science into information that actually makes sense for patients and families. She is, in her own words, on a lifelong journey to figure out who she is, and this conversation is a part of that. Carly's experience and insights help me understand myself a little bit better and feel a little less alone in my experience of what it means to be a Sib. So I hope this conversation does the same for you. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and follow, engage with our content so we can keep bringing more heartfelt and honest conversations like this to you. Enjoy. Carly, welcome to Sib as a Human. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thanks, Sheena. Happy to be here.
I'm so excited to have you on the podcast. I wanted to start things off by asking you the question of how did you recognize that being a Sib had impacted you in adulthood?
Really good question. I didn't for a long time. I would say, I think growing up, I knew that being a Sib affected me on a surface level. There
Mhm.
were the observable differences of being a Sib, of course. So it's just my sister and my sister is 2 years younger than I am. That close proximity in age and then also not having any other sibling, it made my experience just unique, or I think uh, just unique in the sense that I didn't have another sibling to kind of go off of. So I was lucky enough to have neighbors and classmates and like observing their interactions with their siblings and being like, oh, that's not how my sister and I interact.
Right, right.
Other things like just hearing about other people's vacations and, people were going camping and skiing and snowboarding. My sister was born with spina bifida and many other disabilities, developmental disabilities. And so, like, my family never went snowboarding. We never went skiing. We never went camping.
Right,
We
right.
never went on vacation anywhere, I think, outside of a 10-mile radius of like a major medical system, which is like, listen, no complaints. But I was like, what do you mean you
Yeah.
guys do that? I don't do that. And
Yeah, you go out into the wilderness where there's nothing
yeah,
around.
I was like, "Whoa, that's really risky." It's like, "Yeah, but what about the filtered water and about like, what about your IV and your meds?" My family and I went to the beach, which was I applaud my parents, but just, like, even the thought of, like, people were like, "Yeah, we'll just go for, like, an hour or 2," and I'm like, "What do you mean go for an hour or 2? If you're gonna go to the beach, you're gonna be, like, there all day because what about the 2 hours of packing?" And, like, inevitably, while you're packing, my sister's gonna have a seizure, she's gonna have a massive blowout, and then you gotta start all over. So it was just, like,
Right, right.
the concept of, like, picking something up and just, like, leaving, I was like, "Wait, no, we should have a family meeting about this." So those were, like, the more observable things, and, of course, just my sister, with just the nature of her disabilities and how pronounced they were, there were very few things that she could really do herself, so when it came
Mhm.
to, like, self-ambulating and bathing and feeding and toileting, so she really did need a lot of help, and my parents and I so my sister really didn't start getting nursing support, um through the state until she was about, like, let's say 16. I think I was
Mhm.
in college. So, for a long time, I mean, from her birth until, like, 16, 17, it was my parents and I. So, while mom's cooking dinner, I'm feeding Hannah, my sister or, if things are happening, "Hey, car, can you step in and help with getting your sister dressed?" or things like that. And then I didn't think about it for a long time. And then I think it probably wasn't until my, late 20s, so I'm about to be 34, probably in my late 20s that I started realizing, "Hey, I have a really hard time at work delegating," or, "I have a really hard time working in groups," or, um, I enable people a lot. And I don't think it stems fully from being a sib, but I think doing some deeper soul searching, I'm like, "Ugh, I wonder I wonder if there's something with my with being a sib that can, contribute to that." And I think I started getting a little bit curious.
Can you share an example of what you mean by enabling?
2 things. I think I wanna be helpful. I've been programmed to, be helpful, and I like being helpful. And I've also been honed in to anticipate people's needs. I study people, like, intently, not in maybe it sounds weird.
No, it's so relatable.
My sister isn't verbal. So, growing up, Hannah's never gonna ask for anything, or if she does, it's probably too late. So,
Right.
you study her, you watch her like a hawk, you get to know, what even, a little, eye movement means, or what any kind of small deviation that I think no one else would observe, you just observe and
Mhm.
you infer, and the amount of times that you're correct, you're like, "Okay, so that's what this means now." So I'm really good at, pattern detection and observing people. She never once had to initiate any of those things. I would anticipate her needs, and, sometimes I would even get to know it so well that I'd be like, Well, she's going to do this, so I might as well just do this for her now, because in 20 minutes, she's gonna want this, she's gonna need this." And you stop relying on her to ask for it or to do the things to tell you, and you just anticipate it, or you already go ahead and do it for her. So I think all those 3 things, like observing people, wanting to be helpful, anticipating needs before they're even asked and initiated, and then doing things for other people who could very well do things for themselves. I think I see it now and I'm like, "Wow, I'm really robbing them of an opportunity to grow or to take some ownership in their life." And I think it's tricky because it comes from a good place, and it comes across also as very, helpful, so I get a lot of praise for it. But
Mhm.
I think when it goes unchecked, then it becomes a problem, and then there's a lot of resentment on my end of being like, "Oh my god, you never do this for me," or, I never get any, recognition for going above and beyond, and they're like, "Well, we just thought you liked doing that." Or
Right.
I'll later get upset and be like, "Why doesn't this person take initiative? Why are they, sitting around waiting to be told?" Especially at work, "Why are they sitting around waiting to be told what to do? They should know." And then I have to take a hard look in the mirror and be like, "Because I haven't given them a chance to do that."
When you've just jumped in and done all the things, then other people will be like, "Oh, this is just how it is. Carly's gonna just take the lead."
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, I think those are things that were nowhere near on my radar at all, until I was, again, in my late 20s. I mean, that would have been a very foreign concept for me as, a teenager. But those behaviors that I would describe, they've been with me. I've exhibited those ever since I was, 2 or 3.
When did you start recognizing that those traits that mostly society really encourages, especially in women, when did you start recognizing there's a limit to where this is healthy for me and I might need to start reevaluating things?
I really didn't start recognizing, I think, until I started going through, these periods of intense burnout in probably my mid to late 20s, where I was trying to juggle it all. I was trying to be the perfect daughter, the career go-getter, corporate ladder climber, the health enthusiast, the best friend, the best at that point girlfriend to my now husband. And I was just going through these series of just hitting the gas and then just running into a brick wall and just massive burnout. And it wasn't until this happened maybe 3 times where I was like, when the heck is going on here? What is driving
Mm.
this? Um,
What did
and
burnout look like for you?
I was paralyzed. I fantasized so much about wanting to escape. I wanted to go to an island all by myself. and I just wanted
Mm.
to, like, live the rest of my days on an island, secluded from everyone, by myself, and just be like, "Everyone else can F off. I'm done taking care of everyone. I just wanna take care of me. That's all. I wanna be left alone. Stop coming to me with your problems. Stop looking to me to fix things." And I wanted to escape. And also just sheer exhaustion. I have such a deep action bias in the sense that, like, I love doing, I like being productive, I like filling my days and being busy, but I really, like, I was like, even the thought of, like, putting away, I was like, I can't do that. I don't have it in me." Which was just it was very not me. And I think I was like, "Maybe there's something to this. Obviously, this is repeating, so
Mm.
there's some kind of pattern, and there's something fueling this." I had a lot of courageous conversations with my therapist. She's like, "Yeah, so your boundaries, girl, like, woo, they're not there." And you are giving to the point of you are not replenishing at all, and you are just literally, like, bone dry.
Right. Pouring from an empty cup.
Beyond that, yeah. Like,
Yeah.
the cup was empty
And
decades
dried up.
ago. Yeah, now it's beyond dust,
Right.
yeah. And at first I was like, "No. No, no. It has to be something else. It has to be someone else's fault." There was a lot of truth in that, and that took a lot of, like, it started kind of this series of, like, soul searching and looking and seeing, being like, "Oh, wow. There's things that I do that contributed to that." But there's also,
Mhm.
on the flip side, there's things that I can do to prevent that from happening.
When we're talking about the impact of being a sibling, being a sib, there's so many things about our society that really keep us unwell, to put it simply. Um, but what I've found in these conversations I've been having with sibs, it's it's like being a sib cranks up the volume on the things that were already kind of hard. I'm
I
curious
think
if
that's
that's
really
how it.
accurate.
Right? Like, I feel like I probably was always gonna have a little bit of anxiety and,
Oh,
I'm
sure. This is
yeah,
hardwired, yeah.
a little bit was generous. I'm of Japanese culture, and Japanese culture is a lot of pressure on a lot of different ways. Eldest daughter, and when those things compound, like, I'm sure I would be dealing with the mental health things that I have been dealing with regardless, but just that sib layer, I feel like cranks things up to, like, 100.
Yes. I feel the exact same way. I think Carly without Hannah would have already been my anxiety probably would have been at, like, a 75. My depression would have been at a 75, my perfectionist tendencies would have been at a 75. We can go through the list. But then with having Hannah in my life, it's 100. It just
Right.
gets amplified.
Right,
But
right.
there's, like,
And I think
that base layer there, and then
there's
the
that base
little, like,
layer there, for
sprinkle.
sure,
Yeah.
for sure.
But I think it would be unreasonable to expect that your child is not going to be affected. Of course, they're gonna be affected.
You mentioned anxiety and depression, and we sent out a survey to SIBs, and a lot of SIBs are dealing with the same things. Over 85% of SIBs said they're dealing with anxiety. Over half said they're dealing with chronic stress and depression. Over 40% noted experiencing physical symptoms without like a clear origin. What has your journey been like in terms of your mental and physical wellness?
I think, again, naturally, I've just always been an anxious person. I applaud my parents for many, many things. Like, my parents did a stellar job. I would have never I don't think I would have been able to handle it. But I think there are just some things that, and unfortunately, I think a parents, it's hard to hear, but there's just gonna be some things that I think are avoidable. I think they're inherent with the situation. One of the things I applaud my parents for is recognizing, like, "Ooh, girl's nervous." And we need more help. This is outside of our capacity. Let's get her talking to a therapist and have her see a psychiatrist. So I had started therapy when I was like 7 and been in therapy with different therapists ever since and been medicated off and on throughout my life. So definitely depression, anxiety, OCD. I had a horrific eating disorder from
Mm.
well, it was started out as a binge eating disorder, when I was younger. from like 6 to 10. And then probably from like 10 to like 21, pretty bad eating disorder, anorexia. Um, Same thing, stomach issues for days, headaches, pain. I was never vocal about anything. I never told any really adult in my life. I don't even know if I told my therapist, but I never really told anyone
Which part?
about, like, anything that I was experiencing. I internalized every single thing. I mean, I think it was very obvious that I was, like, a nervous girl, but I never said, "I'm scared of blah, blah, blah," or "I'm feeling sad, washing my hands 50 times a day because I think if I do that, I will prevent my sister from going to the hospital or dying."
Mm.
I'm gonna restrict my food or I'm gonna overeat because I'm craving control. Like, one, I didn't have that, like, awareness at all, but I never, never said that to any person. You just internalize just so much
Yeah,
that it doesn't surprise me, of course. Like, your body is going to tell you, even if you don't want to acknowledge it, that,
totally.
"Hey, something's up." We're not feeling great. My therapist will ask me a lot, and I'm like, why do you ask me that? Stupid question. You know I don't know." But she'll be like, "How does it feel in your body?" And I'm like, "I am disconnected from my body. I don't know.
Oh
I
my
try to
gosh.
not think about it." I'm like, as my, like, shoulders are here, I'm, like,
Right,
not
up to your
breathing.
ears.
Yeah, and I'm like, "I feel fine." I'm like, "Don't you know if you just ignore it, it goes away? You just stuff it down." She's like, "No, actually, it doesn't. It doesn't go away. It comes back worse." But yeah, I am totally disconnected from my body. Like, there are times when someone's like, "Where do you feel tension?" I'm like, "Everywhere." It's hard for me to identify sometimes too, where someone's like, "Where do you experience pain?" I'm like, "Just pick a spot." It's probably in pain.
Being disconnected from our bodies, being asked, "So what are you feeling? What are you feeling in your body?" And being like, "I feel fine." And it's like, you're just like so tense. I didn't know that there was any other way to be, right? Because my whole life, I was like, this is normal. This is my normal. And therefore,
I feel
like,
baseline.
yeah, I feel baseline. I didn't realize I was disassociated from my body. I didn't know I was living from like the neck up and I was just intellectualizing everything and always cutting myself off from actually feeling anything in my body. I didn't even know that I didn't know what I was feeling. Does that make sense?
For me, things just didn't even register because I was just like, that was not even in my realm of consciousness. Like, I just didn't
Right.
know, like, that was an option.
Yeah. It's like I was always fine because I had to be, or at least I thought I had to be, right?
Yes.
Because my sibling was not always fine and needed the extra help and attention. So I felt like I had to be fine because that was my only option. So then I like internalized that and then well into adulthood, I was always fine. That was me for a lot of my 20s. But
Yeah.
I thought that was normal.
Yes. Yeah. No, exactly. I think also it's like this, like, self-perpetuating loop to some extent too, because you're like, "Ugh, I'm feeling crappy. I'm supposed to not feel crappy." Like, all I could probably say is like, "Yeah, feel a little tense," or like, my body's, like, sore," or something like that. Like, that's, like, the deepest I would probably go. So I was just like, brush it off and thought it was, like, a me issue. So it just kind of
Right.
self-perpetuated the loop of, like, "It's all in your head, Car. Like, you're fine."
We just normalize it, right?
Yeah, no need to, like, tell anyone about it.
Yeah, and it was like, "Oh, it's not normal for people to feel nauseated all the time?" Or, like, I think I would burn out and I'd either get sick, like, my body would be like, "You need to rest, so here, now you're sick, you have a cold." A lot of times, I would have, like, big emotional outbursts because my body was like, "We need to release in some way."
No, exactly, and I think a lot of times too is, like, outbursts are really difficult because I think a lot of people can, like, hyper focus on the outbursts themselves, and they're like, "Good golly, Sheena's, like, blowing things out of proportion." And you're like, "No, that was, like, years worth of stuff." She's not a robot, unfortunately, she does feel.
Yeah, turns out sibs are humans too. I think part of what I have been thinking a lot about is I had to hit some rock bottoms in order to kind of be pushed to look at these things, and to go, "I can't keep going like this. Something needs to change."
It took a lot of rock bottoms, and I probably have more rock bottoms in me before I really I think it's gonna be a,
I
like, lifelong
know.
journey. Um,
Truly.
but I do think in retrospect, I am really grateful for those rock bottoms because they were an opportunity for me to grow, for me to learn, and for me to have, I think, the self-awareness that is required to live a wholehearted life. So I am
Mm.
really grateful for those. And as much as I don't want anyone to go through a rock bottom, I think that they can be insightful, they're an opportunity. SIBs are really hardy. They don't, I think, always give themselves credit for that, I think, and sometimes too, like, SIBs come across or can be labeled as, like, very fragile because we feel emotions deeply or we react to things or whatever, but we are very, very hardy people, and I think going through those rock bottoms too, I kinda walk through life with the confidence of knowing that I've been through some really dark and awful situations and come out on the other side, so I think you also have that, like, wherewithal to be like, "Oh, I can take this on, whatever."
I would love to actually go over an article that I found talking about symptoms of being a SIB. And I found it really interesting because I think it summarizes really well a lot of the things that we heard from the SIB survey,
Oh, cool.
a lot of things that you and I also relate to. So I kind of wanted to go through them and talk about them with you. The first kind of quote unquote symptom they mention is feeling invisible, feelings of invisibility. There's a term glass child trying to kind of encapsulate this idea that SIBs feel invisible a lot of the time. You know, this article talks about SIBs feeling that their needs come second. And I definitely felt that
Mhm.
to the extent where I was like, what needs? I don't have needs.
Mhm, no, seriously, me too. Other people have
Yeah.
needs, I don't have needs. Mhm.
Right, right. Do you relate to this idea of feeling invisible?
I think that's something I still struggle with today. I think there's so with my sister and her medical needs were in the beginning so profound. She was just like such an anomaly. Like there everything she was born with. There was no genetic like basis in our family. I think my poor parents were like, we have no idea what's going on. Like we knew there were some complications in the pregnancy, but yeah. So I think from the get-go, my sister has been a disruptor in the best way. I mean that as, like, the best compliment.
Right.
But, threw everyone for a loop, and then ever since then, she's had these episodic tics of just medical turbulence of,
Mm.
oh my gosh, she's had in the course of her life 30, 40 plus brain surgeries, like, in her first 15, 16 years of life. I It was very rare for her to go a year without some kind of long-term stay in the hospital, like,
Mm.
that was to be expected, and so you're just going from one hopping my parents had to hop from one medical emergency to the next medical emergency to the next medical emergency, and all the stress that comes with, your daughter potentially dying
Yeah.
once a year, twice a year.
Right.
But then the medical bills and work and, like, all the other things in life that don't stop.
Right.
Like, life
Right.
still happens, and my mom had aging parents and, like, all these other things that just, like, you don't that doesn't having a child with a disability doesn't absolve you of, life's realities. If anything, they continue coming. So, anyway, no one ever told me explicitly, but I think being a very sensitive child, being a very empathetic child, and studying my family and studying my mom, my dad, I n I never felt like I was like, "Ooh, this is a good time to tell folks that I'm a little nervous about that test on Monday." Like, I just was like,
Right. Right.
"Ooh, read the room, Car. No one has the bandwidth for you and your stuff." And I mean, I was told a lot, to be brave and to be a good girl and, I gotta be
Right.
strong. And, I don't blame anyone for saying that. I understand we're coming from a good place, but I think there were a lot of things that reinforced, "Carly, your parents, no one can handle anything from you right now. You have to be self-sufficient, you have to be helpful, you have to exist, but don't let anyone in on how scared you are. Don't let anyone in on, how sad, how angry, any of the I mean, you can name any emotion in the book. And so I think that lends itself to a feeling of invisibility, but then also just, like, deep loneliness.
Yeah.
And also I think
Yeah.
not having another sib, so it was just me, and you're like, "Whew,
Right.
alright, I guess it's me." And I
Yeah.
think then that also I don't know what the article said, but it also lent itself to an extreme hyper-independence in me, and it led to this core belief I still struggle with to this day, that the world is a dangerous and tumultuous place and that it is me against the world, that no one's gonna save me. I have to save me. No one's gonna be my hero. I have to be my own hero, and that the stakes are pretty high, so I can't make a mistake.
Yeah. It's interesting. Under in this article, they actually put hyper independence under behavioral issues, which I found really funny. There was another thing that I really related to in the article was conflict avoidance to a fault.
Huh?
And it was like, I only in adulthood, I'm like, okay, I can disagree with someone. I can do it. I can do And it's literally like, where do you want to go to brunch? And I'm like, I don't actually want to go to that place, but I don't want to cause conflict, so I'm just going to go along with it, right? And that's actually after even getting to the point of recognizing that I have opinions and I have desires and wants.
Yeah, you're so right, like, first you have to go through the step of, "What do I actually want? Do I
Yeah,
really
cuz
want what my sib wants, or do I want something different?" And then I'm like, all the guilt that comes with that of, like, "Well, if they really wanna go there, then fine, I guess we'll go there." I'm like, "I hate that place. I wanna pick the restaurant."
yeah. And it's like I didn't I didn't even know I had like an inner child, a part of me that was like, I actually have a lot of wants and desires and I need to be heard. And it's like that kid in us, at least for me, like for sure never got to say how she was actually feeling.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And it's like the work now is to be like, "Oh, give voice to that inner child." And like for me to like be like, "What do you want, little Sheena? What are you actually wanting now?" To try and tend to that part of me that felt so unseen and felt so invisible for so long.
Well, I applaud you for that. I think people could probably fall into the exact same bucket that you're in, which is, like, they're over agreeable to a fault, like,
Mhm.
still trying to, like, be like, "Oh, yes, I do actually wanna go to this place," and being, like voicing their preference. And I can identify with that, and then sometimes too, I get into the I'm making up for lost time, and
Mm.
my way or the highway, like,
Yeah.
Dairy Queen or bust, and it's like a don't tread on me, like, I'm very, like, "No, now I have the chance to, like, make my own decisions and go, and I'm not gonna go anywhere I don't wanna go."
I think that that's also a really common response for sibs too. A couple other things from the article. It says that sibs might feel like the best way to keep the peace is to never be a problem. So it's that classic, we try to be easy, we try to be agreeable, we are often high achieving. I feel like I know I felt this pressure that fully came from myself if I think about it. But when I was younger, it was like, well, all these things that like my brother can't do so many things, so I have to go above and beyond for the both of us. Like
Yes.
I have to do more in my life to, like, make up for what he can't do. As a kid who had no space to talk about these things, that was what I internalized.
Mhm. Yeah, you're your parents' only shot.
Oof. Oof. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that was the rationale I put in my mind. I'm like, "Hannah's never gonna go to college. She's never gonna get married. She's never gonna do this. She's never gonna do this. So I have to find a way to cram all this into my life so my parents can experience this."
Right. Right. The article talks about high levels of maturity, that
Yes.
sibs tend to seem older than they are, and They can take on a lot of adult responsibilities. This idea of parentification, right? The idea of a child that takes on roles and responsibilities that often a parent would do, and sibs significantly relate to parentification. And in the SIB survey, we had so many people talking about being parentified or feeling like they were an additional parent. I remember growing up, people would always be like, "Wow, you're so mature." And I just was like, "Yeah, that feels so good."
She's an old soul. Turns out she's accelerating through childhood. Yeah.
Right. Turns out she had to grow up too fast. That's
Yeah.
why.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think there were a lot of times where I know I was, like, reinforced of, like, "Hey, Carly, that's something that mom and dad worry about. That's not what or these are things that mom and dad
Mm,
do that Carly doesn't do." Just thinking through contingency plans. I mean, of like, "All right, if Hannah dies, what's gonna go on?" And all these other things and, being like my mom and dad being like, "Hey, Carly, that's also for us to figure like, we'll cross that bridge when we get there." But there were ways where I was like, "I don't know how to be a kid." And I think at that point, there was just so much life experiences that it was very hard for me to be, like, carefree and, like, the classic traits of being a kid because I was like, but I've seen what happens when when life lifes, and
right.
I don't know if I wanna think that everything's gonna work out. Or I can't get
Right.
those, like, worries out of my head. You know what I mean? Because 'Cause I've already, like, I've seen it.
Totally. I think that's the thing that's so fascinating too. So many of us have different backgrounds, different our siblings have different disabilities. Some of us have other siblings that are also not disabled, some of us don't. But, like, no matter what the situation is, so many sibs are just having really similar experiences on, like, an emotional level. And I'm like, "I wish I had known these things when I was younger. Maybe I would have started looking at things a little
A
sooner."
lot of hard lessons I probably could have avoided.
Right?
But, it's necessary in the journey. But I also, like, probably the first sib I met was, like, in college, maybe? So, I mean, even just, like, the concept of, like, having a community, I was like, "What do you mean?" I've never spoken to another sib. I don't even know if we're out there.
Totally. Well, to your point too, as a sib, it can be so lonely. For me, when I, like, found sib community, I was like, "Whoa, I am not alone in these experiences." And I think hearing other sibs also acknowledge the hard parts of what it is to be a sib allowed me to give myself permission to be like, maybe it wasn't as shiny and perfect as I thought. It wasn't until I talked to other sibs who were like, yeah, actually, I'm really mad about this, or I'm really frustrated about this. And I was like, oh, you're allowed to say that? What?
Are we in trouble? Yeah. Well, I think it's good because it's like a mind shift, right? It's away from self-blame of, like, I'm feeling this because there's something wrong with me, and to go from, "No, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm having a normal reaction to some really messed up scenarios or, like, some
Right.
situations that are unusual, and I'm having a usual response to those." It's helpful to be around other sibs too because if, I'm hearing you say things, I'm like, "What are you talking about, Sheena? There's nothing wrong with you." Like I can be the voice of reason for other people, I just can't be the voice of reason for myself. Or it's easier now, like, I'm like, "Well, I told Sheena that, so then I guess that also applies to me too." I think there are some blind spots within yourself you don't see until you interact with other people, and then you're like, "Oh."
I think that is so spot on. So many sibs are so good at taking care of their siblings. They're so good at advocating for their siblings' needs. And we focus so much on other people. It's a no-brainer that if my brother or honestly, like, anyone is, like, going through something, I'm like, "I got you. I'm there. Let me help you. Let me stand up for you and set your boundary for you." But for me, it was like, "What do you mean boundaries? I don't that my boundaries are that I will help you whenever you need." It's like, "No, no, actually, that's not how those work."
Yes. Yes. One of the ways I show love or I am trying to uncondition myself for showing love is to be easy and to be like, "I don't
Mm.
need anything. I don't need much, low maintenance." When really I'm not. But I will be there to help other people, but I don't allow people to help me. And it doesn't lend itself to deep and rich relationships. I think that has lent itself in my past to very superficial relationships. And I'm also really robbing people of the opportunity to like get close to me and to show me love. I'm keeping them very much at a distance and I'm like, no, back off. I'm fine. Let me figure myself out. And, that shows up in it's gonna show up in your marriage. It shows up in my marriage. It will show up in all your relationships. That's something too where I think a lot of people, I assume, would probably be, like, scratching their heads, like, "Why are my, friendships or why are my romantic relationships why is that a struggle?" And seeing, like, wow, I don't lean on people. I don't allow people to love me or show up for me in a lot of ways. In a way that I felt abandoned sometimes growing up or as a young kid, I'm doing that to other people or at least, like, shutting them out.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't realize this when I was younger, but I did grow up with a strong sense of loneliness. And even in adulthood, when I was like, I have good friends, I have a partner, why do I still feel this like deep sense of loneliness? And it was exactly what you described. I didn't know how to actually let people love and care for me. But
Mhm.
then as I got into spaces where it felt safe to share those things, often with other sibs, it was such a relief. It was such a relief because then people were like, "Me too." And then when I was able to then bring that into my other relationships, I was starting to be like, "Oh, wow. It is so nice to be cared for."
Exactly. Yeah. It's very healing.
Yeah, yeah. I'm curious if you have any thoughts on, like, what can folks do to reflect on where they're at, and if some of what we're talking about is resonating and they're like, "Oh, wait, maybe I'm experiencing some of this, but I don't know where to start."
Things that were helpful for me, um, so I meditate. I try to meditate every day, and I hate it, but it is really helpful, and I don't feel great all the time doing it, but I will say it's super beneficial because it has built in for someone who has dissociated so much from their body, it has built in a little bit more of a muscle memory. It is becoming more of a habit for me to check in with my body, and it doesn't happen all the time, but even, like, if I'm in a stressful situation, there's a lot of stressors or things that normally would, like, send me over the edge. And I notice either I'm holding my breath or that I'm breathing, like, really fast and shallow. My gut is, like, tensing up, my jaw's tensing. I am more aware of it, and then it kind of facilitates a, "Ooh, okay, let's do a breathing exercise right now," or like, "Ooh, I'm feeling some tension here, here, and here. Ah, well, yeah, makes sense because that was a tough conversation," or whatever. Um, and it's also it stinks because it's not a quick fix, which I think is what everyone wants to. I've been doing it for years, and, I still feel very much like a beginner, but it is like a good, easy-ish first step. Journaling for me is also something that's really therapeutic and has been super helpful for someone who's also such like an internalizer and an intellectualizer. Um, Doing like a bit of a brain dump and getting all my thoughts out and trying to get things out of my body in a healthy way has been super helpful. I would also say to sibs as much as you possibly can before you reach rock bottom, proactively build up your support system, which is really, really hard and something I totally struggle with because I don't think I need a support system. I will be a support system for other people, but I don't need a support system. But all my rock bottoms, I'm like, oh, I do actually.
Right,
I
yeah.
actually do. I'm not as invincible as I think I am. And they don't have to be your family. I mean, it's great if it is your family. If it isn't for whatever reason, you find some core group of trusted people. And I would challenge other sibs to lean on that support system. It doesn't have to be as grand and dramatic, like in the initial stages. It could just be like, I don't know, asking a minor request or something. But building up a support system, I think, is huge.
I also have a meditation practice, but it is so hard.
It is. It is. And it's scary. It's uncomfortable. Like the prospect of like sitting with myself and like doing self exploration. I'm like, no thanks. Would rather be surface level things. Like,
Right. It's like, what am I going to find down there? I don't know about that. I'm curious where you are at with integrating your SIB identity. Like, what does that look like for you today?
I'm probably just honestly in the beginning stages of really like fully integrating my SIB identity. I've always known I've been a SIB, but not to the extent of really like what does that fully mean and what does that mean for me? And then it's also always evolving, right? So like my identity and my desires and my needs, I mean, you change as we're getting older. And I think also one of the core things about being a SIB is like you have your aging parents and then you have your aging SIB. I'm growing, I'm aging. As some of us might also be starting our own families. And so like each new season brings itself as to like, oh gosh, okay, so what I really needed maybe in this season of life and or what I was learning about myself as a SIB in this season of life is now kind of grown or it's metamorphosed into like this new thing. So I really think I'm just in the beginning.
I appreciate the honesty around it. Being a SIB is not our only identity. It is only one component of who we are, but it is often the thing that we lead with when we're not aware of how much it's impacting us. And so I think part of what I'm curious about exploring is how are folks recognizing their SIB identities and how are they working to integrate it so that we can show up as whole humans, that we can show up in our lives not from places of reactivity or learned behavior of people pleasing and caretaking, but instead like getting to caretake from a place that's like from our heart and not from our like default mode. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes. I think I fully embrace being a SIB, but there also is some times where I resist identifying as a SIB or leaning on it too much because I think I could use that as like a comfort blanket as a way to like describe me without me having to do the hard work of like I need to self-explore outside of that because that's just one component of me, but it's not all of me. I think there's a lot of attention with younger SIBs, not saying that there shouldn't be. But I think if people forget that being a SIB is like a long-term thing.
You're so right. Being a SIB is a lifelong thing. I hope that this podcast is one more step in that direction because even if your sibling has passed on, it's still a part of who you are. Before we go, I did want to ask you if you have something that you are celebrating because SIBs are notorious for not celebrating themselves. So I'm curious, do you have a SIB celebration?
I would say I advocated for myself in the workplace and in my personal life recently, and I'm very, very proud of that.
All right. All right. Was this something that maybe you wouldn't have advocated for yourself,
No,
I don't
yeah.
know, a handful of years ago?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I think again, you go into like the low maintenance, don't have needs and yeah, so and I think that that goes into your professional life. I mean, it goes into everything. So, yes, advocating for myself and I clearly stated what I needed. I clearly stated what my expectations were and they were reciprocated very well. So I was like, "Oh, wow. All right, maybe it was just that easy."
Right? Isn't it great when you actually do the thing and then people are like, yeah, okay. And you're like, oh,
It's like, "Oh,
okay.
I didn't understand. That was like 32 years of buildup, but okay."
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so, so much for having this conversation with me.
Of course. Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you so much for tuning in to SIB as a Human. Please subscribe, like, rate, and comment to let us know what resonated with you. And the more engagement we have from listeners, the more we can bring to you all as well. Connect with us on Instagram at SibAsAHuman and subscribe to our Substack to be the first to know when new episodes, articles, and resources drop. All of these links are also in our show notes. We are currently making this show with very little funding, so if you feel so inclined, we have a donation page if you want to support Sibs and this project. Again, links below in the show notes. If you have ideas or other ways that we can bring this podcast and community to more people, please email us at sibasahuman@gmail.com. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you next time, and until then, be gentle with yourself.